I'll give you a list of things to do if you're getting close to retirement and you lose your job or you're in danger of losing your job. Here's the situation. You're not ready to retire yet, but you're getting close and you find out that your company may be downsizing. What do you do? As a financial planner, this question comes up quite often, and it usually is a person who has got the kids through college. They're at the highest earning they've ever had. Typically, they're saving more money for retirement than they've ever saved before because they can be more aggressive. And then they find out that their company may be downsizing or offering them a package to leave. There's questions swirling, right? Can I get reemployed at my same level? How hard is that going to be? Will I be able to afford my lifestyle moving forward for myself and my spouse? Will I be embarrassed because I'll have to downsize or do something that I'm not comfortable with? These are very legitimate concerns to have. I'm going to share with you how the conversation usually goes when we hear that somebody is facing this possible situation. But first, if we haven't met yet, I'm Nick Davis, founder of Brindle and Bay Wealth Management. We are a retirement planning and tax planning firm here in Texas, and we help people all over to create peace with their financial plan. If you like this video, you know the drill. Please hit that like button and subscribe. Make sure to ask questions in the comments. Thanks for that. All right, so if you find yourself without work, close to retirement, not able to work the years that you want to work, and you're concerned, I'm going to give you some immediate stuff you can be doing, thinking about, and then some stuff that's important but not as urgent. And at the very end of this video, I'm going to share with you a wild card loophole that some people use when they have to, and it may come in handy for you. Okay, so the first two immediate things you're going to want to do is probably already in your mind, is cover healthcare costs and how many months of cash do I have before I have to tap into retirement savings. Okay, so months of income. How many months do you have before you run out? Maybe they're offering you a package. Maybe you just have unemployment, or maybe you have both. Do some easy math and figure out how many months do you have, because that's going to create some space to think about the other stuff that is also important, like finding another job and taking care of a few things that I'm going to mention here in a second. But first of all, you just want to get that one off the plate. The second one is your healthcare. Now, if you're already 65 years old, well, then you just go to Medicare. If you're not 65, and in this case, I'm assuming most people are not, then some people have actually found that they qualify for the Affordable Care Act. And I've found that people who are even high income, because they are now in a low income status, have qualified for the ACA for a few years before they turned 65. However, I will say that most people, and it's more expensive, but most people use COBRA for those 18 months, or in some cases 36 months. And again, it's more expensive, but they get to keep the benefits that they had while they were working. And so if there's any time between COBRA and Medicare, then they look at the Affordable Care Act or some sort of private health care. And if you do end up retiring early, a big fear that we hear is that people feel like, I don't want to have to pay for my health care. In fact, you might not be even facing unemployment and you're like, I'd like to retire early, but I don't want to pay for my health care. I don't think that people should make that as much of a deal breaker as you think, because if you've saved some money for retirement, purchasing your way to 65, giving you those extra years of retirement, and if your plan still can sustain that, is not a bad thing. You get more summers, and why work more if you want to retire early? I'm also going to show you a way to figure this out for yourself in a minute so you can kind of see the impact of that. All right, so then you want to ask the retirement questions. If you could retire now, do you want to? And if you had to retire now, could you? There's not a 2-second answer to this question, but I'm going to give you a few highlights. So first, you're going to want to calculate how much retirement income you can generate from your savings, and then identify any gaps, meaning what am I missing if I had to retire right now? Next, you're going to ask, have I prepared mentally? Have I prepared socially? Have I figured out how I'm going to spend my time? Because there's a lot that goes into the mental side of retirement, spending more time with your spouse. Am I ready for that? Have I developed a sense of purpose outside of work? And would working part-time even be an option? Now, I like to test different scenarios. So I'm going to show you a way to kind of lift that burden a little bit. I think everybody should have a financial story or narrative so that you can test different situations. And let me show you what I mean. Okay, so real quick, Jimbo and Terica, as an example, they've got their financial narrative spelled out here behind the scenes. And in a perfect world, he was going to retire at 65, and he was going to spend about $5,500 per month. And because he's got his stuff spelled out, what he can do is we can just say, well, what if we were to simulate you retiring at 59 instead of 65? And we can see the impact of that. So now we can see that there's definitely a negative impact, and he's probably not going to be okay with 64% there. He might play with it and say, well, what if I were to spend a little bit less per year? So say I'm going to spend $6,000 less per year, so $500 less per month, maybe even a combination of working part-time. So here we programmed in a part-time income for 5 years to kind of bridge that gap. And so he could work part-time potentially, and let's say he even wants to make a fraction of what he used to make. So we could put in a number that's likely something that maybe it would be a job offer or would be a different type of career that he was thinking about doing. And let's just put a part-time income in there for 5 years. So behind the scenes, this is actually running 5 years of extra income. And so you can see what's happening here is if he were to become unemployed, he can work a different scenario to where maybe he spends a little bit less, maybe he doesn't, maybe he works part-time for less money. Maybe his wife also works a year longer. There's different things that they could do to try to figure this thing out. And I think that it's really important. I think also you can see down here, we've got a healthcare gap button. So for example, if we hadn't figured enough healthcare in there with this particular feature, we could put some extra healthcare in there for 5 years to help him to kind of really simulate this out. And everything, of course, is attached to a ledger that would kind of show what the expenses and what the goals are and how that's going. I like to test different scenarios. I like to know what would happen to my own narrative, or in the client's case, if I accepted half the pay, what would that look like? And that can really go a long way to help a person feel better about navigating a situation where maybe they're unemployed earlier than they wanted to be. So seeing your financial narrative clearly spelled out can go a long way for helping you with these sorts of decisions. Another big one would be, do you have debts that you can eliminate? Maybe you can't eliminate that mortgage, but do you have an extra boat payment or two? This goes without saying that maybe you could look into some cost cuts there with your debts. Also, should you roll your 401k into an IRA? Surprisingly, that's not always a good idea. And the reason is that there's a loophole that I'm going to tell you about, that if you roll it into an IRA, you're going to potentially eliminate the possibility of accessing some of those dollars. So I'm going to give you 2 wild card loopholes that a person may be able to do. Now, I'm not going to give you all the details for these 2 loopholes, so don't take this as personal advice for you. You're going to want to, if this is something that you were to utilize, you're definitely going to want to get a qualified professional to check off on this, because there's boxes that need to be checked so that you don't make a mistake. But ultimately, what these 2 choices do is they allow you to access retirement savings before you're 59 and a half years old and get around that 10% penalty. You still have to pay taxes on those dollars, but you don't have that additional 10% penalty. So if you keep your retirement savings in your previous employer's 401k, then one of these is an option for you. If you roll it out into an IRA, you just lost that ability to do that. All right, so the 2 rules are called the rule of 55 and then the 72T rule. 2 different rules for 2 different reasons, but they both get you around the 10% early withdrawal. All right, so with the rule of 55, if your money's in the previous 401k of your previous employer, you can access that money if you're over the age of 55. So if you're 55 or older, you can access that money if you're retired without having that 10% penalty. But what if you don't have money in a 401k, or what if you accidentally rolled it into an IRA? Well, that's where the 72T might come in. Now, this rule states that you have to basically take the money out in substantially equal periodic payments. And you have to do it for the greater of 5 years or until you're 59 and a half. So if you don't do it right, you could have some penalties. Also, it's not as flexible as the rule of 55 because it's a smaller amount and it's a set amount every year. Again, if you think these would apply to you, you definitely want to check with a qualified professional before you do that. But both these ideas are something that are possibilities if you find yourself facing a unemployment situation before you are ready to retire. You know, personally, I'm always looking at my financial narrative. I feel like I'm in the dark if I don't see my situation spelled out in a financial plan. And I feel the same way for clients. We want to be able to answer questions from an informed standpoint rather than a napkin presentation. Many mistakes are made when we just make decisions based on anecdotal ideas. And so I would encourage you to spell out your financial plan so that you can see exactly how things would go and you can test different situations so that you can get through difficult periods and make your best choices. Because you might find out it's not as bad as you think, or that there are levers that you can pull to take advantage of different situations. Let me know in the comments if you think I missed anything that could be added to this list for people who are facing unemployment earlier than they planned, but they're close to retirement. And if you liked this video, be sure to check out this video right here. Hey there, it's Nick again. I wrote something that you might be interested in. If you want to know what my favorite retirement income strategy is for most people or many people, we refer to it as the Money Master Guardrails. If you're contemplating what your income strategy for retirement may look like, I invite you to download a copy of my white paper. Get the insights you need, download a copy today. The link is in the video description.